Just because somebody can't pay their bill does not mean that they're a deadbeat and that they're reneging on things. Things happen in your life that sometimes you have control, but you don't really have control.
We sold everything that we could to try to raise enough money to pay off. There has to be a better way. Whenever you change careers, you've got to pay the price. I just didn't realize how big the price was going to be. Started a real estate company. Spent all the time getting that going. Of course, tried to hire the best people that I could find. That turned out to be a mistake later on. But bought acreage and developed it. Started selling acreage, and it wasn't too long later that the economy kind of
1989, the real estate market just dropped.
Tanked. And so people who wanted to buy my property no longer could because the banks wouldn't finance them. And I was hunting around for any bank that would finance, because without those sales, I needed the money to keep the business going. I had big obligations, paying for advertising. I had a staff, albeit a small staff at that point, but I had a salesperson, and I had a secretary, and I had attorneys and accountants and advertising specialists, and I had to run ads and everything else. So I needed that monthly cash flow. So then, not too long later, things started to get really tight, and more of our expenses ended up on credit cards, because I had to pay for the ads before they would run them. And so
most everything ended up on credit cards.
Started getting very leveraged, hoping that the next sale would be the big sale that would take care of. And it worked that way for a while.
It did.
Until one day, just try to put all my focus into one property, find a buyer for that property who was qualified, the bank would approve, and this sale would take care of all of our problems. So I had this big farm that was available for sale, and I found buyers for it. Now I had a salesperson who volunteered to go out and show the property on this weekend. The people wanted to see it one last time before they closed. So they wanted to see it early Saturday morning, and he headed out Friday night and was going to meet the people. He was going to stay out there and meet the people the following morning. Well, I found out later that what happened was that they showed up at the property, and he had been camping out there, and they surprised him. And when he woke up, he was drunk, and he pointed a shotgun at the people, and then he hit on the guy's wife, and they basically jumped in the car and ran away. They were scared. Well, it turns out that he had a drinking problem that I never knew about. And that was the end of our relationship at that point. I terminated him on the spot, but the sale never went through. So all at the same time, we were trying to come up with money to meet our obligations, find a way to sell property to people who couldn't qualify anymore because the banks weren't lending, and without any more money for advertising. So it got to be an impossible scene. We needed to find a way to restructure or just prioritize the debts that we had, because the pressure got to be so much. You didn't know who to respond to first.
That's when I started calling our credit card companies. And their biggest thing, when I would call the credit card company and say to them, we're having some problems, and they'd look and they'd say, well, Mrs. Rode, I don't understand. You're not behind on anything. I realize we're not behind. That's unfortunate, but we're going to be behind. Well, when you get behind, give us a call. We can't help you until you're behind. So it was like, wait until I trash my credit. If you could just give me a little help. And they were just like, sorry. They wouldn't help us at all.
Basically, all we did for the last year was just circle the bowl.
Yeah.
Until we finally went down the drain. It was lots of continuing to cut back.
Stevie, he had a postal Jeep at one point that he bought that he was riding in. The biggest thing that pushed us into bankruptcy was we had lived with my parents when we first moved back into the area, and one of the creditors that I won't mention, but I don't like them, called my parents' neighbors and kept asking for us. And everybody in my parents' neighborhood knew what was going on. We didn't have the money to send to them, and yet they kept calling. 10 o'clock at night, they'd say, "We're trying to reach Pam and Steve. Do you know where we might be able to reach them?" I mean, they were waking people up. It was horrible, and since it wasn't an outside agency and was actually the creditor themselves calling to find us, they can do that.
We sought answers. We tried to find ways to solve the problem. Things like contacting credit counseling, talking to my friends who were attorneys, talking to the accountants that I used, and nobody really had solutions, and everybody kept pointing towards bankruptcy. And I remember putting on a nice coat and tie and dressing up to go to see the bankruptcy attorney. Wanted to look professional. We pulled up in this nondescript kind of
strip mall.
Dirty strip mall. Nobody really around, kind of walking into the courtyard, into this back entrance, into this office. And it was cheap furniture, and it just immediately was not.
It was just basically, you're here to file. There's no help.
Yeah.
She was like, is there anything? Nope, there's nothing you can do. Filing's the best thing for you. Just get it over with and you're done.
And don't worry, this will go away very quickly, and this is what people do in this situation, and there won't be any repercussions from it. So all you really need to do is just sign here and give us copies of the bills, and that'll be that.
And
a check. And I still carry around her business card, because I always, whenever I'm feeling like I can't go on anymore, I just reach into my wallet and I take the business card out and look at it and just remember what I was going through at that time. And the next time we saw her was at the courthouse. So we had to meet at the courthouse to go before the trustee. And when she walked up, I don't think she recognized us at all. I mean, it had been several months and we'd only met her for 15 minutes. And then we went in and sat in the courtroom.
Yeah, that was quite an experience. I mean, the people there, you remember the people, you remember the faces, you remember the creditors that showed up there and just harassed people.
Yeah, so we got to sit and watch people getting harassed.
It's not personal.
Ahead of us, thinking,
oh my God, what am I in for? It's hard. I mean, if you're not sick by the time you leave there,
yeah.
You will be.
I remember thinking before we got there, it can't get much worse. Wrong. It was horrible sitting there watching people get berated and raked over the coals in front of the trustee by some of the creditors, and thinking, they're going to call our name next. And
they're going to come after us. What are we going to do?
When the trustee was done, I don't even remember talking to the attorney again. I just remember getting up and
gone.
Silently walking out.
It was gone. We were over with. We just kind of, they said that it'll be settled if nobody else comes up and contests it, within, I don't know, like 30 days or something, like 45 days, and it would be finalized by this date, and that they would contact us if it wasn't. And we just kind of left in this numb, we were numb afterwards. And I remember we went to this restaurant, and it was like we were eating and yet you couldn't really taste anything. It was horrible. You were just so numb from the whole experience and from the devastation of what you'd just done.
From that point forward, for a long time, everything was just silent. We went through the motions day to day. We did what we had to do, but we had lost who we were. There are lots of things about those times that I just have blocked out of my memory. I try to forget because they were so painful. It wasn't until after we filed bankruptcy that I finally started to say, this is a terrible situation that I don't want anybody else to go through if they don't have to. Looking back now, it's been a long time. But it's interesting that my biggest failure in life is also my greatest strength. And while I never enjoy going back there or thinking about it, even thinking or talking about it now just sends shivers down my back. My hands are sweaty. But I know that having gone through that experience gave me insight and strength to help others. So in that regard, it was worth it. It was just the price that I paid, the price that we paid. But a lot of good has come from a lot of pain.